Yeah.
Hey everyone, I hope you had a great time watching the 96 Academy Awards. Of course, today I'm here to give you my thoughts on all the winners, the losers, the biggest surprises. So much to talk about, so many groundbreaking stats and big wins from the other night that we must dive into. But of course, before we do that, if you didn't get a chance to check out my top 10 films of 2023, please, I beg you to watch that video, because every year that's what my whole channel leads up to, and it somehow doesn't get as many views as I'd like it to. That's why I review these movies once we get to the end of the year, once we get to the Oscars, just to share with you guys my love for the movies and what movies I love the most. I look forward to it more than any other video each year, so I implore you to please check that out if you haven't already. But regardless, let's get into this Oscars, because this was not a cookie cutter ceremony like a lot of people usually think the Oscars went down, like let's say 2021 for instance. It isn't one of those Oscar ceremonies. Like, there were a lot of expected things to win, yes, but there were so many upsets in a lot of categories that we will discuss. But I want to say, overall, I thought the show and the presentation of it was very good overall. I mean, Kimmel he had some great jokes here or there. I love how he takes the piss out of everyone in Hollywood, but he toes that fine line to the point where he's not completely pissing them off. But not all the jokes worked, and one thing that certainly I don't think landed at all was the joke about Robert Downey Jr. I mean, the guy took it like a champ, gotta love him, and we'll talk about him later, but I just thought to myself, really? Like, it seemed a bit distasteful to bring it up at this point, and maybe they cleared with him beforehand, I don't know, but yeah, to put him on the spot, I wasn't huge on that. There were some jokes here or there that I really wasn't a fan of. The John Cena thing I loved. When he comes out, costumes. I thought that was really funny, and what a way to spin off from an already iconic moment in Oscar history and pay homage to it in a way that's refreshing and funny. I really loved that skit overall, and I thought they could have cut down on the skits a bit, because still sometimes I feel like they don't give people enough time to talk, though I think the speeches this year were very breezy, very to the point, very heartfelt, very poignant. At the same time, let's cut out the silly shit, okay? I mean, beforehand, back in the day, they'd be like, oh, here comes Cole Porter to present the Oscar for Best Original Song. He's like, and the Oscar nominees for Best Original Song are... And it's just like they waste no time and cut right to the chase. I wish that the Oscars kind of got back to that at least a little bit, because we don't need all this extra superfluous stuff that's padded out. Sometimes it's fun, and there was a lot of fun to be had. We'll talk about I'm Just Ken later, but yeah, I really did think overall the presentation was really great. I thought the staging was impeccable. Besides in the In Memoriam, which was really strange, because then again you're leaving out a lot of people once again that weren't present, and you could hardly look at the screen because they were just focusing on like a wide of the stage with all the dancers. I didn't even realize people were dancing, but you could hardly see who came up on the screen. Oh, also, they snubbed Burt Young. Yeah, let's throw Carl Weathers in there. Of course, absolutely needs to be on there. But Burt Young, Oscar nominee for the original Rocky. Carl Weathers wasn't. So, I think that was a bit shameful. I can understand why they left off someone like Norman Lear, because he was primarily in television, but at the same time, it's just kind of weird how they cherry-picked certain individuals, and I don't know what is wrong with the Academy. Like, get someone to check the list of everybody who's died in the past year and actually put them in. It's not that hard. Okay, someone do your fucking job. I'm sorry, that pisses me off. But overall, besides that, I really liked what they did. I kind of liked having the past Oscar winners come out too. I know they did that years ago, the year The Dark Knight was not nominated for Best Picture, because I remember they did it when Heath Ledger won Best Supporting Actor, where Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for that year as well, and there was a nice callback to that, which we'll get into. But I thought some of them felt very personal, especially like when Rita Moreno, who just looks amazing for 91 years old, keep in mind, was talking to America Ferrera, of course, talking about America, just like she did in the original 1961 West Side Story. And just to see that kind of connectiveness of ethnicity was really, really a beautiful moment. And there's some people who are truly friends presenting, or, talking about this specific nominated individual that felt very heartfelt and genuine. But also, there were points where it didn't feel that way, and you could kind of see it's like this person obviously doesn't know them, and they're just kind of like reading off a teleprompter. But even so, I always liked the idea of it, and I just think it was exceptionally framed. And yet again, the stagecraft on display was really something to behold at this year's Oscars. I think more so than anything, even though there are a few hiccups here or there. But let's get into the actual awards, because that's what you're all here for. And of course, I'll start off with Best Supporting Actress. The first award of the night, which obviously went to Da'Vine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, and who I personally think gave the most heartfelt and moving speech of the entire night. I was tearing up a little bit listening to Da'Vine talk about how, she really didn't see herself for who she was. And she's like, I always wanted to be different, but I realized I just had to be myself. Like, that was really moving, and you could tell how much winning this award meant to her. And I just thought that was such a beautiful, heartfelt speech. And then when Paul Giamatti walks her up to the stage, I was like, oh my goodness, what a class act. And then you see him crying in a scene. Who does not love that guy? He's an amazing person. And Da'Vine strikes me with a very similar sense of humility. And even though I would have picked Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, I'm really glad to see her win. It was a beyond deserving performance at the very least, whether it was my favorite or not. And as you know, Holdovers was one of my absolute favorite films from last year. Probably the film I would have picked to win Best Picture had I gotten to vote on the nominees. So yeah, really, really happy to see her win. And of course, if we're going to talk about supporting, it came later in the night, but let's talk about Robert Downey Jr. finally getting an Oscar. And yet again, another performance, his turn as Louis Strauss. It was one that wasn't my favorite. Of course, I would have picked Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. And if I think Milo Machado Granados should have won for Anatomy of a Fall, but he wasn't even nominated, unfortunately. But really, I mean, just RDJ getting up on stage, flashing the peace sign, and giving another very self-effacing and self-deprecating speech is something to truly behold. I mean, how can you not love this guy? He's so cool. He speaks with such a great sense of humility, too, after everything he's gone through. And that's really probably the most gratifying moment for me, to see how far this guy has come. After all the addiction problems he had throughout his life, to see him turn himself around, land the role of Iron Man, become one of Hollywood's absolute most successful and biggest stars, to finally be on the Oscars stage and get that long-coveted Academy Award. I mean, I could not be more happy for the guy. I absolutely love Robert Downey Jr., and really, really glad to see him finally get his just due after all these years of not winning an award. Because let's be honest, in 2008, he had the misfortune of going up against Heath Ledger in Tropic Thunder. And I'm really glad when Sam Rockwell, of all people, presented the award, he made a Tropic Thunder reference. So I was like, okay, let's go. Still his best performance, I think. I haven't seen Chaplin. But yet again, how could you not be happy for RDJ? Just what an amazing guy. What a great actor. Now let's get into a few of the big upsets and surprises of the other night, because I'll be honest, I wasn't too mad about a lot of the movies that won at all. I think a lot of these were very well deserved, whether they were my favorite or not. But there were a couple moments where I was a little mad. And one of them was perhaps the biggest surprise of the entire night, and that was The Boy and the Heron winning over Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Look, I think yet again, this stat is amazing because Hayao Miyazaki, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, nobody can deny that, and winning his second Academy Award, which it is a surprise that this is only the second traditionally hand-drawn animated film to ever win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, following Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away from over 20 years ago, which is, more than deserving of the award that year, and I think in any year, to be quite frank. And I thought that, just the fact he's the oldest winner in the category at 83 years old, I mean, that's pretty amazing. He's still making movies on such a high level. Yet again, the second time Japan has won. I don't think there's any other films that aren't in English besides Spirited Away and that have won. So that was a big win for Japan. And also, he's the most nominated individual, tied with, I believe, Pete Docter. And also, I think that he has the most wins outside of any American filmmaker, to be quite honest. So, big night for one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. But, as good as The Boy and the Heron is, in no way does it even come close to the monumental achievement in animation the Spider-Verse was. I mean, remember we were talking about the beginning of the year this was going to get nominated for Best Picture? Well, screw that. You ain't getting anything now. And I thought that Spider-Man getting goose-egged was maybe the most disappointing moment of the entirety of the awards season. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's the absolute greatest animated film ever made, but it is one of the greatest achievements in the history of animated film. And I don't think that really should amount in a loss. And I love Miyazaki. I mean, I'll talk about Miyazaki much more than I will, just that singular Spider-Man movie. But even so, it's just really a bummer how disappointed I was at that loss. I mean, yet again, we're having the third one, so maybe it's like, oh, well, there's another one coming, so we're just going to give it to that one. But yeah, I guess this is proof again, sequels don't win unless you're Toy Story. Like, that's really what it comes down to. That stat hasn't been broken yet, but I still think it will be when the third Spider-Verse movie comes on, Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think that will probably win Best Animated Feature. But I was, to be quite honest, but that's the thing. Can I knock The Boy and the Heron? Not really, because it's a great film. I just don't think it reaches that same level of achievement. And we know Miyazaki's going to make another movie now. He's already, in the production stage of that. And if I had to guess, that would probably be his last movie. But, yeah, I'll wait till I see Miyazaki gone. I don't want to, say that, obviously. I want to have him being creative and keep making movies for years. But he is getting up there in age, so until he's actually gone from this earth, I really don't think that this is going to be the end of Miyazaki that we see, and I certainly think that he'll get another nomination in the future at the very least. But really hoping in a few years that Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to win that Oscar to make up for what happened the other night. But regardless, besides that, there were a couple of other huge surprises. I think what wasn't a huge surprise was Poor Things winning production design, because, yet again, I said it in my review for Poor Things, I was like, this movie, look, Barbie's production design is amazing, and any other year would win easily, but, I mean, these are some of the most creative and elaborate sets I've ever seen in any movie, and so, of course, the Academy did recognize it, and I thought they were going to give Barbie costumes, and they didn't. And they ended up going to Poor Things as well. And then I was like, okay, this is really interesting. So, obviously, there's much more of a groundswell support for that film, and deservedly so. It's amazing. One of my favorites of the year for sure. But, when we got to makeup and hairstyling, yet again, another film I thought got robbed of the only one Oscar that it would have been able to win at all. And that, of course, is Maestro, because look, whether you love that movie or not, you have to admit, the old age makeup is literally the best makeup I've ever seen in any movie, besides maybe like An American Werewolf in London, which was the first inaugural award winner in that category. But I think the stuff with Willem Dafoe's character is really, really impressive, and they do utilize makeup in a very interesting way, but I think Maestro was snubbed. That's what it comes down to. But then again, this also was a big indicator, because as soon as it won makeup, this happens every year, there's always a really tight race between the lead acting categories. And when I saw it won makeup, I was like, Emma Stone is going to win Best Actress. Because I think even more so than SAG and Golden Globe combo, an unmissable combo that has yet to be tested is makeup and lead acting. I mean, look at the past few years. 3 years in a row. Jessica Chastain, Eyes of Tammy Faye. Brendan Fraser, The Whale. And now Emma Stone in Poor Things. Like, they obviously loved this movie, but I think that was a clear indicator. You can never bet against that stat. Absolutely never. So whenever makeup wins, and there's a toss-up between the lead acting categories, whatever film wins makeup, that's who's winning the Oscar. I'm going to lock that in stone. But the thing is, of course, until that gets broken, of course I will eat my words, but I truly think that is an extremely hard combo to beat. And let's just get to Emma Stone while we're at it, because my goodness, the genuine emotion that you could obviously tell, she was overwhelmed by her second Oscar win for lead actress, of course following La La Land in 2016. And while I think personally, I mean, La La Land is one of my top 3 favorite films of all time. It's an absolute masterpiece, and it's a very, very meaningful film to me. I don't think she should have won the Oscar for that. I would have picked Isabelle Huppert in Elle, but no one saw that movie. And even Natalie Portman and Jackie would have been great. Which isn't to say Emma Stone's undeserving in La La Land, but this is easily the most deserving performance of her career, and definitely the best performance of her career. My favorite performance of the year. So it was nice to see my best performance of the year win the Oscar. And just yet again, Emma Stone seems like another one who's just a very genuine, very down-to-earth person. And I'm really incredibly happy to see her win. And of course, the battle between her and Lily Gladstone, the Battle of the Stones, right? You could tell how happy Lily was for her, and who looked just absolutely beautiful, by the way. And yet again, there's obviously this mutual admiration and respect that all of these people have formed for one another. And I think that, yet again, sometimes when people are making a big deal about it, oh, she's upset. No, she wasn't. Did you actually see the footage? Like, she seemed very overjoyed for Emma, and I don't think that there was anyone more deserving of the award. And I think it's really interesting to bring this up, because when Michelle Yeoh won the Oscar last year, who of course presented Emma Stone the Oscar this year, people were like, oh, she's great in it, but how did she beat Cate Blanchett? Is this a part of a career narrative, but also, sort of a history-breaking stat? Of course, being the first Asian woman to win an Academy Award was a big, big deal. I don't think the Academy goes out for those types of narratives as much as a body like SAG does. And they really go based on merit, which, yet again, I think Lily Gladstone would have been deserving to win the Oscar. Don't get me wrong, but I really do think that they picked the most merit-based performance based on the technical character work that Emma Stone poured into that role. And I'm really just glad to see that happen, because it's one of those things where it's really nice to see that there is some objectivity there, and I like a good balance between the both, of course, and I wouldn't have been upset either way, but it really was nice to see the best performance of the year win. Anyway, I'm going on too long about that. One film, though, where that could, or one category, though, where that perhaps could be refuted is Best Visual Effects, because I mean, you know how I feel about Godzilla Minus One. I think at this point, I think it's the best movie of the decade. Really, almost bar to none. And even though I love Godzilla, I was still saying this whole time that the creator should be the one to win. I just think because, yes, it has a bit more of an impressive budget, but it's like Avatar level visual effects. And yet again, for $80 million, that's such an achievement within itself. But They ended up going with the little movie that could. And look, couldn't have been more happy, because to see Yamazaki and his team get up on there, and keep in mind, not only is that the first Japanese film to be nominated for visual effects category, or at least the Japanese visual effects team, it's also the first Godzilla film to be nominated for an Oscar and a win. And is the first time a director has won for visual effects since Stanley Kubrick for 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is one of the greatest movies ever made. Maybe the best visual effects in any movie, right? So to see Yamazaki get up there with, him and his team and their Godzilla figures, I absolutely love what they did. And the heels, too. I don't know if anyone saw those heels, but they were fire as hell. I mean, they were really getting that Godzilla shoe game going on, you know what I'm saying? But yet again, I wish that they would have given them more time to speak, because obviously Yamazaki isn't like an incredibly well-spoken English speaker. He's obviously not fluent in it, and it seemed a bit disrespectful to kind of like push them off, because this is such a big moment for them. You could tell they're all happy to be there. I mean, the fact that this movie came all this way is a miracle. The fact that it was this good is also a miracle. So to see them win the Oscar was an especially gratifying moment for me, even though I would have liked to see the creator win over them. Really happy because the director of the film did win an Oscar, even though it didn't get into Best Picture, which it should have. But yet again, that was really, really a standout moment from the entire night. And we gotta talk about the music Oscars, of course, because the performances were all very good. But there was one that stood above all of the rest, and that, of course, is Ryan Gosling's performance of I'm Just Ken, which really brought down the house. I mean, not only was the staging amazing, you got Simu Liu and Kingsley Ben-Adir getting up on stage, but you had like references to Bubsy Berkeley and all this amazing stuff. And then Slash shows up out of nowhere, and I'm like, what? Why is Slash here? And it was like such an amazing moment. It was so entertaining, him going down the audience, singing to Emma Stone, great La La Land reunion there, of course. And it was just the energy that they brought to that entire performance of that song was really the highlight of the entire night. I think people will look back and say that was like one of the best performances in Oscar history. I really mean that. And I'm not like the biggest fan of I'm Just Ken. I think it's a really fun song. I think structurally it's really great. Nice to see Mark Ronson get some recognition, by the way, by the Academy. But I do think that the most deserving song did win, which of course was What Was I Made For, from the same film, of course written by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, which the fact that Billie Eilish is 22 years old and has 2 Oscars makes me feel like a failure. Like, unbelievable stat to be broken by those two, 22 and 26 years old respectively. And they already have 2 Oscars, breaking the record for the most Oscar wins before the age of 30. It really, really unbelievable how talented they are. And just really glad to see them, because they seem like such genuine people. Yet again, I love seeing that type of humility. And Phineas is such a cool guy. And yet again, like, their speech is just so very down to earth. They already won the Oscar before. But yet again, you could tell how appreciative they are of it. And I think the fact that that was the only Oscar Barbie won was quite shocking. And I've been saying this since it came out. It is a movie that was going to peak, and it was going to go right down. Like, this was not a movie the Academy was going to go for, even though I thought they should have given it costumes at the very least. Yeah, I guess the support just wasn't there. Of course, they gave it to another big movie that also came out this summer that might have come out on the same day. But yet again, really happy to see them win. Huge milestone record for them, and I couldn't be any more happy for those two winning that award. And of course, speaking of music, can you hear the music? The score of Oppenheimer itself, Ludwig Göransson winning his 2nd Academy Award. We knew it was going to happen. Just that theme alone is so iconic at this point. Yet again, not the one I would pick I, of course, would probably have to go with Jerskin Fendrix for Poor Things, but you look at the overall consensus, people are saying this is an all-timer score. I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it is certainly an iconic one, and it is great, and really great to see him win again. I think it's an even better score than Black Panther, you could say, even though there are some moments of Black Panther that might be a bit more memorable from a score standpoint, in my opinion, though I think they should have given to Mark Shaman that year. But regardless, I think that this was a very deserving win for Oppenheimer. And not one of the first, because, of course, earlier I believe Jennifer Lame won the Oscar Best Film Editing. Also, one of the best moments of the Oscars when she gets up on stage and says, of course, because there's Arnie and Danny DeVito, and she's like, I love the movie Twins. You heard it right from the editor of Oppenheimer's mouth. So I just thought that was so funny for some reason. But, I mean, truly the most spellbinding, most innovative editing of the entire year. Really absolutely deserved that award. And, of course, you knew Oppenheimer was going to get a lot of below-the-line categories, like cinematography, Hoyte van Hoytema getting on stage, advocating for celluloid film to shoot on. Of course, not everyone's going to have access to that, but I appreciate where his heart is. And I'm very glad to see Hoyte van Hoytema finally get recognition from the Academy. I feel like he's been a cinematographer who's long in the industry, long overdue, so really glad to see him finally get the Oscar Gold. But maybe the biggest surprise of the night, and the one that I think really shut out my prediction for the amount of awards that Oppenheimer would win, that was Best Sound, which ended up going to The Zone of Interest. My goodness, I yelled when that happened. I was shocked. But yet again, this is a huge, huge moment, because you would think the Academy would go for the movie with the most sound, like Oppenheimer, but here comes a film that's whole artistic intention is built around the sound design in the movie, and it's so integral to the reason that movie works. And I think this is a huge moment in the Academy, because they're actually giving legitimate thought to what should win sound design, not what is the biggest amount of sound. And that's not to say, yet again, that Oppenheimer would be undeserving. I mean, just watch the rally sequence alone, and that's all you need to know. But I think the fact that they're giving it to how well utilized the sound was in the narrative of the film is a huge game changer for years to come. I think the Academy just keeps getting so much better and better. They're truly honoring films, well, for the most part, they're truly honoring films that legitimately deserve the awards from an artistic standpoint, and that's what it should have always been about. Yet again, you're always going to have your PR campaigns, you're always going to have this stuff, but it truly feels like at this point, people are rightfully picking what deserves to win these awards. And I think Zone of Interest's triumph over Oppenheimer in that category is something that truly is proof of that, and something I wholeheartedly agree with. And of course, Zone of Interest, one of the few films besides Oppenheimer and Poor Things to win multiple awards. Of course, without a question, no one would have predicted otherwise that it wasn't going to win Best International Feature Film. And I think Glazer gave one of the best speeches of the night. I mean, here's this Jewish man standing up against Israel and their hate crimes against the Palestinian people. Really, a lot of balls, a lot of respect to Jonathan Glazer for speaking up for what's right. And yet again, a lot of people say, oh, he's going back on his people. No, I don't think that's what it's about at all. And I think we need more brave people like Jonathan Glazer to get up and say for what it is, because that's really what the Zone of Interest reflects. You know, how we turn a blind eye to these atrocities that are happening. I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I mean, I'm going to call myself out a bit. And yet again, I am happy that the whole ceremony wasn't overtly political, but it was political when it needed to be. And of course, Kimmel calling out Trump. And Marjorie, what's her name? I don't know, some dipshit. I forget her name. But anyways, I think that, and of course, I think Chernov's speech for winning Best Documentary Feature for 20 Days in Mariupol, I mean, that guy's a fucking hero. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, this guy was down in Mariupol when all of this was going down, you know, literally risked his life to make this movie. And while I think To Kill a Tiger was not only my favorite of the best documentary feature nominees, but one of the absolute best films of the year, the best documentary of the year, if you ask me, I really think that this was a very deserving award, because it's truly a miracle that this film exists. And yet again, between those two coming on and really standing up for what was right, there's a really big moment, which makes the win for animated short film seem that much more superfluous. Because look, I haven't seen War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, but everyone says it was just a cheap ploy to, you know, win an Oscar and grab the attention of people, because of course it's, you know, it's just a simple message like, war's bad, let's have peace. But yet again, does it really solve anything? Look, that's not that was John Lennon's intention ever. But, you know, the fact, I think Dan Merle brought up a really great point in his Oscar breakdown. Those guys didn't say anything when they got up on stage to accept the award about any of the wars going on in the world, when really that's what the animated film is about. Except, oh, let's just wish Yoko Ono a happy Mother's Day. Like, I don't know, like, cool to see Sean Lennon, I guess, but yet again, thinking about it in hindsight, I thought that was a really interesting perspective, because it really felt like, yet again, you could have used your platform to say something about an issue, but you obviously just wanted to win an award. And I think, considering what that film is and what people have been saying about it, I'm really not happy about that. I thought 95 Seconds was a really, really thoughtful and interesting animated short. That was one category I didn't get to see everything. So anyway, I thought that was really a sour spot of the night. Probably the worst win of the entire night, based on everything I've heard. But speaking of the short categories, I was really happy that The Last Repair Shop ended up winning Best Documentary Short, because when I saw that, I was so incredibly moved, and I thought this is an incredibly important and essential film that all educators or people, you know, who are head of districts, you know, and people who are like superintendents of schools, you know, should really watch if you're ever thinking of cutting music programs, because I think that it is so important to see the impact of this on everyone's lives. Look, I mean, I would not be anywhere near the person I am today without those music programs. Like, that really defined my entire, you know, primary school career. It really was, all the way from elementary to high school. It defined my life, quite literally, and I don't know who I would be without that type of experience today. And not only that, but the documentary has so many interesting subjects and ties them together in such a cacophonous and euphoric way that was just so touching and moving. And really glad to see Ben Proudfoot win his second Oscar and Chris Bowers winning his first. You know, that guy's been putting in a lot of great work in scores and movies. I mean, he did the hand double stuff for Green Book. He did the score for Green Book. He did some of the stuff in Soul, I believe, for the piano and the motion capture. This guy's been really putting in a lot of work, and I'm really glad to see them win. And then, of course, another famous director finally getting their first Oscar, which was Wes Anderson for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and he wasn't even there. Yet again, him and Miyazaki, you know, two of the all-time greats, not there to accept their awards. I mean, Miyazaki is a bit more understandable. He's old, he's from Japan, so how will you make it over there? But Wes Anderson, maybe he's shooting a movie or something. He's always shooting something. So really glad to see Wes Anderson as an Academy Award winner. But it would have been nice to see him get up on stage and you know, have a few words, because it wasn't my favorite of the category. I've seen most of them, but it was certainly beyond deserving. And of course, we got to talk about the screenplay categories. Anatomy of a Fall, no-brainer to win Best Original Screenplay. Arguably, from an objective standpoint, the best screenplay of the entire year. And I'm so glad they played Pimp! As Justine Triet and Arthur Harari were walking on, that has got to be one of the most badass music cues in the history of any Oscar win. And the fact Messi was there, I was so concerned, because I heard people were like, oh, we don't want this dog here. Why would you not want that dog here? He's such a good boy. And the fact that he actually was there was one of the most gratifying moments of the entire night, and especially seeing him clap after Robert Downey Jr. won. And of course, piss on Matt Damon's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But really, I think this is such a deserved win. Really great to see those two get on stage and accept this award. Seemed like such a cool couple, you know, like, and the fact that they won for this movie, I think everyone was happy about. This is obviously one of the top 5 contenders of the night this year out of the Best Picture nominees. Really glad to see them win. Very deserved. And then you got Cord Jefferson for American Fiction, which somehow sweeped at all the guilds. I don't know how, really. I mean, I get why it was nominated. It's a very, very thoughtful and important film. It's very topical, but I really thought I had some problems with some of the way the film concluded, some of the balance between the satire and the actual drama of the story. I thought could have been a bit more deftly handled. But really, Cord Jefferson gave a really great speech, especially his point where he was talking about how, you know, Hollywood's spending all this money on, like, movies with a budget of $200 million. How about you invest in 20 movies with a budget of $10 million. I think that's a great point, and what I've been saying this whole time, you know, looking at the success of Oppenheimer, which obviously wasn't a $100 million movie, but it's Christopher Nolan. We'll get into that. But, you know, people will go to see these, you know, mid-budget dramas that have been proved to make a lot of money, because we've been seeing what's been happening in the comic book genre, and it's time that Hollywood really diversifies and changes their strategy when it comes to marketing movies and picking what they invest in. So I really did love Cord Jefferson's speech, and just for that I'm glad he won, you know? Like, I really thought it should have gone to Oppenheimer or Poor Things, and yet again, I predicted Oppenheimer would have won 9 Oscars. I was being a little bit perhaps too optimistic when it came to screenplay, but even so, Oppenheimer ended up taking the last 3 awards I have to talk about. Of course, Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, another incredibly humane and down-to-earth speech. Cillian Murphy, such a great actor and such a great guy, it seems. Just any average old bloke you'd like to talk to. He's all about his work, first and foremost, and really glad to see him win, because even though it wasn't my favorite of the category, you know, how can you deny his performance in Oppenheimer? And this is another big moment in the Academy, because, of course, Emma Stone is more textbook case, a performance that the Oscars would go for. Cillian Murphy does insanely subtle work. It's all in his face in Oppenheimer. And the fact that they awarded this to Cillian Murphy for that type of performance is something you don't see the Oscars usually do. Like, we are far past the days where Cliff Robertson would win for a demeaning portrayal of an autistic person. Okay, like, we are giving it to truly amazing work that I feel everyone can kind of agree on is an incredible performance. I mean, he carries that movie for 3 hours, and he's absolutely mesmerizing in the way he holds himself, the way he reacts to things. It's masterclass acting, and yet again, for a masterclass talent, really glad to see him win the award nonetheless. And then, of course, one of the best moments of the night was when Steven Spielberg, of all people, gave Christopher Nolan his first Oscar for Best Director. My goodness. I mean, yet again, I think Zone of Interest was the best directed movie of the year, but how can you deny Christopher Nolan his accolade? And seeing him get on stage and hug Spielberg, it's like one of the greatest moments in all of cinema. 2 masters. Obviously someone I'm sure Christopher Nolan greatly admires and looks up to. Getting that moment of recognition and acceptance on that level is something that you just love to see. It's going to be one of those all-time great Oscar moments. And seeing them walk off the stage together, we're all like, what are they talking about? You know, but really, I mean, Christopher Nolan really does deserve Best Director, though, because this guy is so painstakingly a craftsman in the truest sense of the word, because you can see how much he cares about the filmmaking and how seriously he takes it. And I'm so glad that they gave him an award for a movie that he absolutely deserves for, and that they didn't wait till later in his career to just give it to him because it's Christopher Nolan. In the fact he can walk away with an Oscar that not even Stanley Kubrick could get is truly something amazing and deeply gratifying. And then, of course, we get to Best Picture, which obviously went to Oppenheimer, and with a very bizarre delivery from Al Pacino. It seems like he just kind of walked on stage and said it. Of course, he said, oh, well, they told me to do it like that. But here's the thing, you know, his moment of hesitation, it's like, my eyes see Oppenheimer. Like, everyone had to really take a double take, because what happened the last time Emma Stone won Best Actress? Yeah. So, still, of course, when he said Oppenheimer, though, one, it was no surprise, and two, Emma Stone wasn't in that movie. So we all knew that was going to happen, and yet again, to see Emma Thomas and Christopher Nolan, power couple if I've ever seen one, get on stage, accept this award, such a monumental moment in their careers, and such a monumental film. I mean, yet again, isn't what I'd pick to win Best Picture, but I definitely am so happy that it won. It is certainly the most deserving film to win in the past few years, certainly since Parasite. And the fact that a director like Christopher Nolan, who I would put in my top 10 favorite filmmakers of all time, win for this monumental achievement in filmmaking is really amazing. And this is a movie that I think, I've already said, this is an iconic classic. Oppenheimer is a classic movie, and nobody can deny that, because, yet again, it's one that people are going to be talking about forever, for the rest of time, and the implication of what it says about the rest of time also coincide with that. And yeah, I mean, I'm just so happy for the whole Oppenheimer team. And yet again, what a great Oscars it was. I'm really glad overall, besides a couple of quibbles. Then again, there weren't many things, even if I was upset about it, that weren't very undeserved. Except maybe that one award. So yeah, guys, that's my thought on the Oscars. Let me know what you thought about them down in the comments below. Did you enjoy the show? Did you enjoy the winners? Did you enjoy the speeches? Would love to hear what you think about it. And of course, smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos on here. I do this video every single year, so you best believe it will be coming at your way next time we talk about the Oscars. And yeah, now that this is kind of out of the way, hopefully my schedule's a little bit more free, but I'm still in the process of making some videos. Of course, we're diving into the top 50 albums of the 50s with Johnny Radio in a couple weeks here. We're going to get that up for you and start that countdown as soon as we can. Can't wait to get into those records with you guys. Of course, so many great movies that coming out, especially Love Lies Bleeding, which I'm beyond excited to see. And yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in all this time, and I really hope I didn't bore you to death with how long I talked about this stuff, but, you know, this is what my whole year leads up to, and I'm just glad I can share my thoughts with you all, and I hope we can all have a very constructive and interesting conversation down in the comments below about it. So yeah, guys, until the next video, take it easy, and I'll talk to you all soon.